Students, yesterday I had given you a homework and you were supposed to develop a conversation between you and your friend, wherein you were supposed to wonder what do teachers do when they are at their homes. And based on that conversation, three students of the class are going to do a role play. So let us see it.
Hi Ridhima, hi Shita. Do you know what teachers do at their homes?
No, but why are you asking?
Yesterday I had a funny dream about Aditi ma'am.
Oh, what was it?
I had a dream that Aditi ma'am was washing her clothes, she was cutting onion in her kitchen, and she was dancing while grooming. Do you expect all these things from her?
No, I didn't expect all these things from Aditi ma'am in real life.
Today I am going to her home to invite her for my birthday party.
Okay, go now and see what ma'am is doing.
Knock knock. Ma'am, I am here to invite you for my birthday party. Will you join it tomorrow? Okay, I will come. Thank you. God bless you. Thank you, ma'am. What happened yesterday?
No, tell me.
My dream came true. Yesterday I had gone to ma'am's house and do you know what I saw?
No,
Ma'am was crying. Do you know why?
no, tell me.
Because she was cutting onion.
Hello learners of class 6th. I am sure that all of you must have one favorite teacher and you would want to know more about that teacher. Similarly, the poem that we are going to read today also has a child who is curious to know more about his teacher. He is even ready to follow one teacher back in order to know what his teacher does after going from school back to his home. The poem is titled Where Do All the Teachers Go? By Peter Dickson. So let's get started. Before reading and understanding the poem, let us know some fun facts about the poet Peter Dickson. Peter Dickson was not only a poet, but he was also a performer, educationalist, and artist. He grew up in London, UK, and he readily admits to being a rather naughty boy whose schooling was far from successful, having failed at spelling and understanding of word form and grammar. He tended to write secretly at home, drawing and writing of things largely which was ignored by school. More or less by accident, Peter became a school teacher and eventually a senior lecturer in education. Still mystified as to how all of this happened over the course of the last 30 years. He contributed to over 100 poetry anthologies and has had 7 collections of his own work published by Macmillan, including Grow Your Own Poems, Lost Property, and a poem titled Grand Prix of Poetry. This is how the cover of that book looks like. Now let us see some other covers of his books. All of these books are written by Peter Dickson. Objectives. The objectives of this poem are to trigger imagination of students, to help students think out of the box, not think how ordinary people think, to develop appreciation for poetry. Let me begin with a question. Have you ever been curious of what your teachers do at home and elsewhere? I'm sure each one of you must be curious what your teachers do at home. For a little child, a teacher is special. It is difficult for a child to think of his or her teacher as an ordinary person. This is a humorous poem written from a child's point of view. He is curious to know about his teacher's life outside of classroom. He has many questions in his mind.
Okay, so now we are going to start with the choral reading of this poem. Aditya, I want you to start by reading 2 paragraphs of this poem.
Where do all the teachers go?
Where do all the teachers go?
When it's 4 o'clock?
When it's 4 o'clock?
Do they live in houses?
Do they live in houses?
And do they wash their socks?
And do they wash their socks?
Do they wear pajamas?
Do they wear pajamas?
And do they watch TV?
And do they watch TV?
And do they pick their noses?
And do they pick their noses?
The same as you and me.
The same as you and me.
Rita, continue.
Do they live with other people?
Do they live with other people?
Have they mums and
Happy mums and dads.
And were they ever children?
And were they ever children?
And were they ever bad?
And were they ever bad?
Did they ever?
Did they ever?
Never spell right?
Never spell right?
Did they ever make mistakes?
Did they ever make mistakes?
Were they punished in corner?
Were they punished in corners?
If they pinched
Did they pinch
the chocolate flakes?
the chocolate flakes?
Okay, sit down. Continue.
Did they ever lose their books?
Did they ever lose their hymn books?
Did they ever leave their dreams?
Did they ever leave their dreams?
Did they scribble on the desktop?
Did they scribble on the desktops?
Did they wear old dirty jeans?
Did they wear old dirty jeans?
I will follow one back home today.
I will follow one back home today.
I will find out what they do.
I will find out what they do.
Then I will put it in a poem
Then I will put it in a poem
that they can read to you.
that they can read to you.
Written by Peter Jackson.
Written by Peter Jackson.
So the surname is pronounced as Dixon. Okay. How is it pronounced? Dixon. Dixon. And how do you pronounce this word Wear? Raise your hands if you know the pronunciation. Wear. Aditya.
And wear.
Wear. This word is pronounced as wear and not were. What is the spelling of were? W-E-R-E. W-E-R-E is pronounced as were, whereas wear is spelled as W-E-A-R. So when a word which is spelled as W-E-A-R, you are going to pronounce it as wear. Alright? Very good. Sit down, all of you.
The first stanza begins with the child asking, where do all the teachers go when it's 4 o'clock? So usually in UK, 4 o'clock is the time when school closes. So he's asking, what happens? What do the teachers do after the school is over? Do they live in houses? And do they wash their socks? So it's very difficult for the child to imagine that teachers do normal household chores like he himself does or she herself does. The child wonders, do they wear pajamas? And do they watch TV? And do they pick their noses the same as you and me? It's very difficult for him to create an image of his teacher wearing a pajama. That's a very new concept for him because he has seen always his teacher being formally dressed. He wonders whether his teacher also watches TV like he does, whether his teacher picked his nose like he does. So again, this element of humor has been added in order to make the poem humorous and funny. The child is wondering all of these questions. He is processing all of these thoughts in his mind and thinking whether his teacher does all the mundane and normal things that all of the normal human beings do. Do they live with other people? Have they mums and dads? And were they ever children? And were they ever bad? The second stanza continues with the child wondering whether his teacher lives alone or they live with some other people. Does his teacher have mums and dad? And then the child questions, were they ever children? Is it possible for his teacher to be a child at one point of time in the past? And were they ever bad? Did they do something for which they were punished? The third stanza continues. Did they ever never spell right? Did they ever make mistakes? So he's asking, as a child, if his teacher ever made mistakes. Mistakes like spelling mistakes or any other kind of mistakes. Were they punished in the corner if they pinch the chocolate flakes? So punished in the corner basically means when a child is being notorious, he does something mischievous. This is common. The child is asked to stand as a form of punishment. So the child wonders whether his teacher also, when his teacher was little, was his teacher punished also in the corner if they pinch the chocolate flakes. Now what are flakes? Flakes is basically, it's a thin chip-like layer. As you can see in this image of cake, you can see this thin chip-like layers which children have a habit of stealing and eating, right? So he's wondering, when his teacher was a child, whether the teacher also pinched again means, here it means to steal. So he's wondering whether he's wondering whether his teacher was punished when his teacher as a child stole the chocolate flakes from a cake and then made to stand in a corner. All of this is very fascinating for this child. Continuing on to stanza 4, he asks, did they ever lose their hymn books? Now, hymn books are books that contain songs of worship, praising the Lord God. So he is asking whether as a child his teacher lost his hymn books. Did they ever leave their greens? Now what does green indicate here? Green is being referred to green vegetables. Okay, so children, they have a habit of not eating fresh green leafy vegetables. They tend to dislike this. And what do they like? They like what appeals to their taste buds. They like to eat fast food, right? So he's wondering whether his teacher was also like that, whether his teacher also did not like to eat greens. Then he asks, did they scribble on the desktop? Now children have a habit, which is a bad habit. It's a bad tendency to write on the school tables, right? So he's wondering whether his teacher also used to scribble on the desktop. Scribble again means to write something or draw carelessly. To write or draw carelessly. The child continues wondering that, did they wear old dirty jeans? An ideal teacher has an image of a clean personality, of a disciplined personality again. So he is wondering that if his teacher also wore dirty jeans, old dirty jeans again. I'll follow one back home today. I'll find out what they do. Then I will put it in a poem that they can read to you. They here refers to teachers. So he's saying that I'm going to follow one of my teachers one day and I'm going to find out what do they do after they go home. And after finding that out, I'm going to write it in a poem that your teachers can read for you.
Now I'm going to distribute these chits to you, and on these chits are written adjectives. Using these adjectives, you can take help of these adjectives. You can also use some other adjectives. Okay, and with the help of these adjectives, you have to make a poem on your favorite teacher. It could be a poem on your favorite teacher, or it could be about a poem about teachers in general. Understood? So, pick anyone. I'll ask you to read aloud the word written inside, the adjective written inside, and also you will write those adjectives on the board so that all of you can refer to those adjectives. Now, what's the first word? Particular. Particular. Particular means someone who is on time. Sit down. Next. Smart. Right? Smart not only in looks but also in their work. Very good. Any other student from this room? Fun loving. A teacher who loves fun and makes classroom teaching also a fun activity.
Discipline.
Disciplined. Very good. A teacher who is disciplined. Quick-witted. The word is quick-witted. It is spelled as Quickwited. Quick-witted is someone who is really quick in giving responses. Someone who is really intelligent and very sharp. Sit down. Next word. Hardworking. Humble. Humble is someone who is really kind, who is down to earth. Very good.
Easygoing.
Easygoing. Someone who adjusts easily. temple of knowledge. Very good. Anyone else from this row? Okay.
Caring.
Caring. Teachers are caring. Very good.
Punctual.
Punctual. Someone who is on time.
Strict.
Strict. Teachers are strict.
Yes,
Ma'am.
Teachers are supposed to be not necessarily strict, but if they are strict, then students also do their work on time. Yes. Any other student? Firm. A teacher needs to be firm so that the students take their teacher seriously. So these are some of the adjectives that you can use for your favorite teacher. You can also use some other adjectives to make a beautiful poem. So the activity that we are going to do is a follow-up activity. Now since we have already done the poem, I want you to compose a poem of your own wherein you are explaining about the qualities of your favorite teacher. Yes? And write down the word, the adjective that has been given to you. You can pick up the chalk from label. Caring and particular. Very good. Next two students, please come. I want the rest of you to write down these words in your copy. Punctual and smart. Strict and fun loving. Firm and intelligent. How do you pronounce this word which is written at the top? Humble. Very good. Humble and disciplined. But the G is going to be small. Easy going. Easy going is someone who is easy to get along. Yes? To whom you can convey your thoughts easily without any hesitation. Yes? It means easy going. Hard working and temple of knowledge. And then we also have quick witted. And the last word is an encyclopedia. E again will be small. If yes, then why? If no, why not? Yes, Vanshika?
I was surprised about that his teachers do ordinary things like we do.
Bring it closer.
So it's a very simple but yet imaginative and interesting poem that you are definitely going to enjoy. It is going to trigger your imagination, and definitely some questions must be popping up in your mind after reading this poem. You must be curious about more things, how your teacher's lifestyle is. Let us conclude with a poem. Well, the poem gives us a message that it's difficult for us to understand that a teacher does not only play the role of a teacher, they also have their personal life. They have their own hobbies and passions apart from teaching. We have a habit to categorize people. We categorize people and we believe that others will behave in that set category only. But that is not the case. It is time to accept people not as a set category but as human beings. So, teachers are also human beings. They'll also do all the normal things that you and your loved ones do. They also have a personal life. They'll also play the role of a father, mother, sister, daughter. And apart from that, they have their own personal life and they have their own personal space. So we need to understand that. But for a child, it's a teacher is next to a superhuman being. He cannot imagine, it is very difficult for him to imagine that a teacher can behave like normal person. So this poem is teaching us to be considerate of our teachers because they are also human beings like we are. I hope you understood and enjoyed the poem. That's all for today.